Yeah. Good evening. Hope everyone is doing just great. Tonight we are going to be learning. What are we learning here? Here we are. We're learning Daf Chaf Hey, Eruvin Daf Chaf Hey, and as well Daf Chavav Amud Aleph. The beginning part of this Gemara is pretty straightforward. A couple of nuances as we move through. The Amud Beis is a little shorter, and then it'll bring us to until 4 lines to the bottom of the page on Chavav Amud Aleph. Let us get started. A reminder. A karpef is a space that is besa sign 5,000 square feet, and by and large they are not hukaf ladira. And when they're not hukaf ladira, so then there's an isser derabanan to carry there. Mida oraisa, one is of course allowed to carry in any space that's enclosed, irrelevant of its intentions. However, when it comes to a karpef, there's an isser derabanan because it's not hukaf ladira and it's too large to be treated like a chatzir. So that's kind of the background here. So it says the Gemara. Second line of Daf Chaf Hey Amud Aleph says the Gemara as follows: Karpef yoser mi beis hasayin shelohu kaf ladira, our classical case, a place where you're not allowed to carry. It is a karpef that is bigger than the 5,000 square amma requisite, and it's lohu kaf ladira, nobody lives there. Uba lema'ato, and you want to lower the amount of surface area, the amount of area that this space covers, so that now it can be treated like a space that you're allowed to carry in. So says the Gemara, 4 different versions, 4 different approaches as to how one would be able to minimize that space, thereby allowing one to carry in this particular karpef. Because again, the karpef where you're not allowed to carry is defined by beis hasayin, the 5,000 square amos, and also that it's not hukaf ladira. So if you can't solve the hukaf ladira part, maybe we can solve the area part. Let's see how the Gemara recommends this. So, this is answer number 1, approach number 1. We are on Chaf Hey Amud Aleph 4 lines down. So one way we can minimize, says the Gemara, one way we can minimize the 5,000 square amos, the beis hasayin, is as follows: miato be'ilanos, if you plant trees, thereby trying to take up some of the space of the beis hasayin. So says the Gemara, lo have miut. That doesn't work. Why doesn't that work? Because if you look back to the Gemara that we learned last night on the bottom of Daf Chav Gimel Amud Beis, there we said that this does not ruin the space because you can still walk there. Trees don't ruin a karpef. So therefore, you cannot use that to be mama'et, to minimize the fact you can plant trees if you want, but it won't allow you to carry there. It's still not enough. Banavo amud gavoa asara v'rochav arba have miut. If you would have built an amud, a pillar of some kind, that was its own rishus with the parameters of gavoa asara v'rochav arba, so then have a miut. That would be considered a reduction in size. And if you put that inside of a karpef that is beis hasayin, and it then is a size that is large enough that when subtracted from the beis hasayin, now the remaining volume is less than a beis hasayin, then have a miut, then you're allowed to carry there because you've reduced that beis hasayin to less than beis hasayin. Good. What if the space that you built, this little building that you built, this little rectangle, is pachos migimel? What if it's small? So then, of course, we're already our brains are going to the world of lavud. You'd be right to do so. It says the Gemara. So that doesn't work. Pachos migimel lo have miut. You have to have it be more than gimel. What about if it is a little bit more than gimel? What if it's migimel ve'adalid? So there we have a machlokes. If you're trying to be mamayit, if you're trying to reduce the area of a karpef, which is beis hasayin and it's lahukaf ladira, and you're trying to get it so that the surface area is no longer a beis hasayin, so you build a little rectangle that's large enough in square footage to reduce the space, but it's only 3 plus up to 4 amos, 4 tfachim tall. So what do? Says the Gemara, that's a machlokes in the Amoraim. Rabbi Amar have miut. Rabbi says this does count as a reduction in space, and therefore, if the remaining space is less than beis hasayin, you're then allowed to carry. It's no longer a karpef; it's effectively a chatzer. However, the Rabbi Amar lo have miut. Rabbi was of the opinion that no, it is not considered to be a miut. Rabba Amar have miut. Why does Rabba say that it's a miut? Once we say that it's above 3, or I should say, once it's 3 plus, so then you can't tie to lavud anymore. You can't say that this is because of lavud, and therefore it takes up space. Afal pi, that it's not a rishus hayachid mamish, it's not 10 tefachim tall, but afal pi came. The din is that once, according to Rabba, that once it is Sorry, which one is this? Sorry. Rabba Amar have miut, yes, because it's no longer lavud. But Rava argues. Rava says, Rava Amar lo have miut. Why not? Why doesn't this space, which is 3+ tfachim off the ground, and wide enough to reduce the remaining surface area to less than Beis Hasayim, why does that not work? Kevan de lo have a makom dalad lo chashuv, because it's not a makom chashuv. Fascinating. It has to be a makom chashuv. What about lavud? Who cares about lavud? This isn't only about lavud. There are various factors here. In essence, everyone agrees to the din of lavud. There's a machlokes between these two amoraim, between Rabba and Rava, about whether or not a makom chashuv is one of the things that's required in order to be considered a reduction in space of the karpef. Okay, so those are a couple of different ways to be mama'et, to reduce the surface area of a karpef. Let's try another one. We're about 10 lines down or so. Let's say that you moved away from one of the outer walls and you built a mechitza across, basically cutting a section off of the karpef. So does that work? So says the Gemara, yes, it does. Hoil. That does count, obviously. It seems pretty obvious that it would reduce the space. So let's say that you had a big rectangle like this, and what you did is you put up a mechitza from here to here, right? You put up your mechitza here all the way across. So now the whole thing, which is 50 by 100, it's 5,000. Well, now you reduced it by putting up a mechitza here all the way across. Good. Good. So says the Gemara, Hoil, that definitely is considered to be a reduction. Says the Gemara, however, Pachos mi Gimel, if the wall was too short, lo Hoil, similar to like we saw before about the rectangle that you built. If it was less than 3, also it wouldn't work. What about mi Gimel va'ad Daled? We have a similar machlokas like we saw before. Rabba Amar Hoil. Rabba says that even though it is from 3 to 4, it works. And Rava Amar Eino Moil. Why do they have this machlokas 1/3 of the way down? Rabba Amar Hoil dehanafik leimi Toras Lavud. Once we are above 3, as we pointed out earlier, Rabba is not concerned about the parameter of makom chashuv. So once you're outside of the concern of lavud, it's considered as something that takes up space, and therefore it's a mute. It can reduce the space of the karpef and make it mutter to carry once the remaining space goes beneath 5,000 square amos. Rava Amar Enomo, okay, Vandalo have a makom daled lo chashiv. Since the space that you're making here, since the mechitza that you're using is too short, so therefore it's not a makom chashuv. There's no lavud, you're right, but it's also not a makom chashuv, so it's not considered a reduction in space. Rav Simi masne lakula. Rav Simi taught the lenient opinion here of Rava. Which one's the lenient? Is Rabba. Rabba was the lenient one who said that it would count as a reduction. So now we're about 1/3 of the way down, says the Gemara. What if we try to make the outer walls of the karpef a little thicker? Let's say that you have a perfect rectangle. The inner space inside the walls of the karpef is exactly a Beis Hasayim. And you know that. You're like, hey, I got a great idea. I'm going to go get some clay, and I'm going to lay it on the inner side of one of the walls. And what it will do is it will reduce the surface area by a tiny amount, bringing the remaining surface area to less than a Beis Hasayim, to less than 5,000 square amos. Okay, good plan, says the Gemara. Tachbo tit v'yachol lamod bifnei atzmo. Let's say you take some mortar, you take some clay, and you put it up against on the inside of one of the walls of the karpef. So then if it's yachol lama bifnei atzmo, of course, if it can stand on its own, if it doesn't fall down, basically have a mute. Everyone agrees that, of course, pashut, you've reduced the space. It's not with some trick up your sleeve of like, is it less than 3 tefachim? No, it's clear. You made the walls thicker. If anyone were to take a ruler and measure, even take a laser and measure, you'll see that length by width does not equal Beis Hasayim. It's going to be less than 5,000 square amos. However, what about Eino Yachol Lama Bifnei Atzmo? What if the clay that you're adding is only temporary? What if once it dries out, it crumbles? So would we then say that that counts as a miyut? Would that reduce your space? That's a good question. It doesn't last forever. We know by kosher, for example, we have kesher shel kayama. You don't trigger the isser until later. So what about right now? Well, we don't have the answer yet. So let's see, how does this play out here? Says the Gemara, that too is a machlokas amoraim. Rabba Amar have a miyut. Rava Amar lo have a miyut. That when it comes to the clay that you're laying on the inside wall of the karpef, even though right now in this moment it is less than 5,000 square amos, But some of the Amoraim say it works, and some of the Amoraim says it doesn't. Rabbi Amar Hava Miut Hashta Miyakoi. Go take out the ruler and measure right now. Right now, this space is less than 5,000 square amos. Done. There's nothing to talk about. Rava's more forward thinking on this one. Rava Amar, no, I don't agree. Rava Amar lo havimiyud came lo yachal and make up lo klumi. You're right. I agree with you that if you measure right now, that it's going to measure less than 5, but it's a 0. The measurement is not relevant right now because that which you did is too flimsy to count as a thing. I don't care if you're measuring right now. It's kind of like when you push something inside of a closet door and you quickly slam the door. Okay, it's not really in place yet. You're approximating. It's not really in place. So therefore, Rava says, I don't accept the lightweight, flimsy clay that you're going to put on the inside. Well, that does not count. So that remains the machlokas right. Okay, so says the Gemara as follows. We're about halfway down. Hirchik min hatel. Let's say you have a mound of dirt. Now we know how we define a tail already. We've discussed tail hamislake, either an increase or a decrease. If there is an increase or a decrease of 10 tfachim over a distance of 4 amos, then that is considered to be a wall halachically. So let's say that one end of your karpef is a tail hamislake. We're going to use the example of a hill here because we have to, because it plays into later parts of the Gemara when we add a wall on top of the hill. So what we're talking about here is a small hill that has the incline that's necessary. It raises 10 tfachim over the distance of 4 amos, so whatever the angle is. Very good. So if you distance yourself from the tail 4 amos, and you make a wall, okay, everyone agrees that that's considered a reduction in the space of the karpef, and therefore it's now mutter to carry. Pachos migimel, if it was less than 3, if the wall that you built was less than 3, al svasa tail, or you built a proper mechitza, but it was on the edge of the tail, so then Rav Chizda v'Rav Hamnuna chad amar hoil v'chad amar loho, that's a machlokas right. And says the Gemara, tistayim, we can conclude, of course we know, but whenever we see the word tistayim, it's always after seeing 2 shitas that were unknown, and now we have a havamina as to which one is which. Says the Gemara, Tistayim, we can conclude that Rav Chizda Amar Hol. Rav Chizda was the one who said that this wall on top of the tail, on top of the mound would work. Why? The Itmar, because we have a statement from the Amoraim, Ha'ose mechitza al gabe mechitza, which is in effect what we're talking about. Why is it a mechitza al gabe mechitza? Because the tail is a mechitza. The tail is the tail of mislake. That's considered to be a wall, and you built a mechitza on top of it. What does Rav Chizda say? Amar Rav Chizda b'Shabbos hoil. Wow, Rav Chizda holds that a mechitza al gabe. We learned yesterday that mechitza al gabe mechitza is a nothing. So that's not everybody. Clearly, that's the sheet of Rav Papa, but this is the sheet of Rav Chizda. Rav Chizda was of the opinion that if you build a mechitza al gabe mechitza, so then you're good to go. That counts. That actually functions and that counts. So we see already that by Shabbos that Rav Chizda would agree to a mechitza al gabe mechitza. So tistayim, it must be the case that we hold of the opinion that Rav Chizda is the one who holds that if you build a mechitza on top of a tail, that it counts in regards to creating a miut, in regards to reducing the space of the karpef. Now, a little bit unrelated, but connected in the statement of the Amoraim that we just saw in Rav Chizda, is that Amar Rav Chizda b'Shabbos hoel b'nichsei hager lo kana. But when it comes to nichsei hager, let's say that there's someone who is a ger, they're mamish a ger, they do it the right way, they're fully part of Klal Yisrael at this point. However, they have no yorshim. Right, they're blood biological family. They're not yorshim, and if they have no children and no one to give to, so then there's no one to give it to. So then the halacha is, it's a difficult halacha, but the halacha is that's kol hakodem zacha. People are allowed to make a kinyan on their own. Now, what if the kinyan that I made is this mechitza al gabe mechitza? So there, Rav Chizda says uvenichsei hager lo kana. That does this wall, which is mechitza al gabe mechitza. I do taka hold that it does work for the world of that it does work for the world of Shabbos, but not for the world of Nichsei Hager. Rav Shesha Samar, after Shabbos nami lo hoil. Even by Shabbos, mechitza al gabe mechitza doesn't work. Tistayim, we can therefore conclude that Rav Chizda was the one who said that if you build a wall on top of a tail, that it would then be considered an actual wall. Says the Gemara, about 2/3 of the way down, Amar Rav Chizda, connected to this sugya, umodeli Rav Sheshes. Rav Sheshes, I know you don't agree with me in regards to the mechitza al gabe mechitza for Shabbos, but I would like you to agree with me with the following. In regards to a case, she'im asa mechitza al hatel shehoil, that if you are on the tail, so let's say you have a mound, again, it's on that slight incline, and you're on top of the tail. You're not using the tail to enable the property off the tail. You're sitting on top of the tail. So if you're sitting on top of the slope, so then Rav Chizda says, Rav Sheshes, I want you to agree with me that in that case, it works like a mechitza my taima. Why? Says the Gemara, this is a lumdish idea. What happens if you live on top of the mechitza? Is that inside the mechitza or is that not inside the mechitza? That's a fascinating question. So that's what the Gemara is saying here now, that Rav Sheshes, listen, I understand that you don't agree with mechitza al gabe mechitza by Shabbos. I know, but this isn't standard. This is not the norm. People don't live on top of a wall. So there, Rav Chizda asks Rav Sheshes to agree. We don't really see the answer of the Gemara, but it does seem to be that there's a degree of agreement. So then the Gemara asks a little bit of a unique question, which is connected here as follows. Boy, Rabba Bar Bar Chana. Rabba Bar Bar Chana had a question. Let's say you had a case of mechitza al gabe mechitza, okay? And then nivleu mechitzos hatachtonos, and let's say your mechitza al gabe mechitza was a mechitza on top and a tail on the bottom. The water comes and it pulls away the slope of the bottom, and it's no longer a good mechitza. But for whatever reason, your mechitza on top had enough stone underneath it to keep it standing. Fine. What would be the din, asks the Gemara, if your mechitos hatachtonos fall apart, but your mechitos ha'elyonos are still in place? So asks the Gemara, lemai, what are you asking this question for? If you're asking about the case that we just mentioned in the machlokes Rav Chizda and Rav Sheshes, I thought it was Rav Papa. Rav Sheshes. If it's in regards to the machlokes that we saw earlier by Nichse Hager, so then your question doesn't make any sense. Why not? Well, because we know that the walls don't work, as Rav Sheshes already indicated. As Rav Chizda already indicated. Even Rav Chizda, who was mekil by Shabbos with mechitza al gabe mechitza, but he agreed that when it came to the Nichse Hager, that the wall doesn't work. And let's see Amari Makom to support that. Hainu to Yirmiyah B'Yira. This was a person's name and nickname, I guess. Yirmiyah B'Yira. Ta'amre Yirmiyah B'Yira. What did he say? Amar Rav Yehuda. Hai man de shada lifta apila de ara de ger. Let's say that there was a ger, and he passes away, and all of his nechasim are available for the taking. Now, I don't have time right now to go into the property, so I take a seed and I throw it into the yard over the fence. In due time, it will root. In due time, it will take root. So that's what I did. And then the Asa Yisrael Acharina, another Jew, said Rafak Bapurta, he takes a shovel and he starts tilling around. He starts moving things around in the ground. So says the Gemara, Basra Kani, Kamalo Kani, first of the longest lines, Daf Chaf Amud Aleph. The last guy who took a shovel and dug in the ground, that functions as a kinyan more than the person who threw over the seeds to build the tree. Why? Because, says the Gemara, my taima, because the idna de shada, when I threw in the seedling to try to make a kinyan, so then lo kashavach, I have not improved anything. I didn't make anything better. It's going to take time for that seedling to soak into the ground. It's going to take time for it to grow. So the shvach, the benefit of the sapling that I threw in, the seeds that I threw in, is not for now. It's going to be down the road. Masha'en king ki kashavcha, when this person came in and he shoveled a little bit, mimela kameshavcha, he instantly improved the land. So therefore, says the Gemara, between the two things, one where your change had no shevach, nothing really changed right now. You threw something in there, but its impact wasn't yet. Masha'en came, the other person who did so, then that's what the Gemara says here. And if that's the case, then throwing in the seed is no different than our having a pre-existing wall. You didn't do a maisa. You didn't make anything a shvach. You didn't make a gain in regards to the nichse ager. So therefore, you don't get the kinyan. So says the Gemara, it cannot be that the question of Rabbi Bar Bar Chana was about nichse ager, because we already learned that just throwing in the seeds doesn't work. And that is similar to our case. And therefore, Rabbi Bar Bar Chana could not have asked the question about nichse ager in regards to what happens if the bottom wall falls away and the top wall stays. It can't be about nichse ager because we know that that's not a valuable improvement enough to make a kinyan by nichse ager. So therefore, ve'ela, what must it be? Third of the widest lines, Chaf Amud Aleph, ela, what must it be? L'inyan Shabbos. Oh, come on, we already learned this. We all know this idea. What does it say by Shabbos? Have mechitza nase b'Shabbos. Then this mechitza is a functional mechitza on Shabbos. And what did we learn? V'tanya kol mechitza nase b'Shabbos bein b'shogeg bein b'mezid shema mechitza. No matter what, when there's a mechitza on Shabbos, it's automatically made into a mechitza. So your question, Rabbi Bar Bar Chana, about whether or not the top mechitza, which remains standing, counts for Shabbos, that's pashut that it counts. That can't be your question. Lavit Mar Allah, didn't we learn about that? Amar Rav Nachman, Lo Shanu Ela Lizro, Kavala Tal Tel Asr. This Gemara we've seen at least once, maybe twice. So the Gemara says, didn't we learn about this? That Rav Nachman says that we're only talking about throwing, but about tiltal, it's still Asr. And then the Gemara says, Ki Itmar de Rav Nachman, Amazid Itmar. Rav Nachman was only talking about Mazid, but our case is not a case of Mazid. The top wall became the Iker wall when the bottom one fell apart, in which case it's mutter to be metaltel, because that wasn't an act of Mazid, it happened on its own. So therefore, that also can't be the question of Rabbi Bar Bar Chana. And the Gemara concludes without answering the question. We don't know what Rabbi Bar Bar Chana was asking. Can't be about Nichse Ager. That doesn't make sense. And it can't be about Shabbos because it's for sure it's a mechitza. So the Gemara here continues with a story that plays off on this. Hahi Itza. There is a woman, Da'avda mechitza al gabe mechitza b'nichse Ager. She was not holding cup in this sugya, and she did what Rav Yirmiyah B'Yira said you should not do. What happened? She built a mechitza al gabe mechitza as it relates to a property of a ger. So there was a ger, same case as before, where a ger passes away and he has an estate, he has products, he has items to be taken. All right, therefore the taking, and her kinyan was to make a mechitza al gabe mechitza. Good, that's what she did. And then also who gavra, and then another person came along and rafak ba porta, and he took a shovel and dug around in the ground. So says the Gemara, the two of them got into a machlokas. She said it's mine because I built a mechitza al gabe mechitza. He said it's mine because he took a shovel and started preparing the ground for planting. So says the Gemara, so the Kamed Rav Nachman, they came in front of Rav Nachman, ukma biyadei. This is where it's important to know grammar. Biyadei with the yud hey. It is Rav Nachman awarded him biyadei with the nechasim of the ger, whereas the woman lost out even though she built a mechitza al gabe mechitza. Asa ihi v'katzavcha kamei. She was screaming at the top of her lungs, "What are you doing? I was there first. Kol hakodem zacha, whatever. It should be mine. Why are you giving it to him?" So says the Gemara, Amar Allah, Rav Nachman said to the woman, Mai aved lach. What do you want me to do for you? You didn't make a kinyan the way you were supposed to make a kinyan. What do you want me to do? Change the rules for you? He did a maisa. There was a shevach to the property. You didn't do a maisa that had a shevach to the property. Making a mechitza is not a kinyan. Doing something to the ground in the case of nichse ager is a kinyan. It's unique here because what kinyan do you make to say that everything in the property of the ger is yours? It's not regular kinyanim, meshicha, kinyan sudar, chalipin. It's none of that. This is a very unique scenario where a person has no yorshim and they're a ger. They have no bloodline at all, nothing whatsoever. That's rare to happen with a yid because everybody knows somebody. So it happens, but everybody usually knows somebody. But this is a very unique case. So that's what the Gemara concludes here in regards to the case of nichse ager. The Gemara here now entertains the following case. We know, of course, as we've mentioned, that a karpef that's beis sasayim, it's usher to carry unless it's hukaf ladira or unless it's less than a beis sasayim. Now, what happens if in fact, it's much larger? And that's the case we're dealing with here, but part of it is roofed. So says the Gemara as follows. Karpef beis shalosh. Let's say you have a karpef that isn't beis sasayim. It's not 2 sa, it's 3 sa. So it's, what is that? That's 7,500 square amos. That's pretty big. So you can imagine something that's 75 amos long by 100 amos wide. That's a pretty big piece of property. So says the Gemara as follows. And Vikira bo besa, 1/3 of it has a roof on it. So how do we view that roof? Does that roof change anything in regards to our discussion about the 2/3 that are open, the besa that's open? Are we allowed to carry? Does it make it any better? Does it make it any worse? This is a machlokas amorai. Rava Omar avir kiruyo miyasro. Rab Zera Omar ein avir kiruyo miyasro. Thank you very much to Rashi for explaining this. Rashi, 2 lines from the bottom toward the beginning of the line. Dibur hamaschil avir kiruyo miyasro. Says the Gemara, says Rashi, 2 lines from the bottom. Sa'a hanekura mechshava bahade idach. the part that's covered is considered to be conjoined with the two that are uncovered, kilu lo kiruhu, as if there is no roof there at all. Ve'akati havi yoser mi beis hasayim, and therefore the space is larger than a beis hasayim, and therefore by definition you're not allowed to carry there, because any karpef that's more than beis hasayim, that's not hukaf ladira, you're not allowed to carry. The roof did nothing for you. It continues in Rashi. The second shita, Reb Zera was of the opinion ein avir kiruyo miyasro, that the air doesn't do anything for the ceiling. What does that mean? Says the Gemara, says Rashi, last line, De'amrinan pi tikra yored b'sosem. So here we have a din that we know which functions as a din deoraisa called pi tikra yored b'sosem. Pi tikra yored b'sosem effectively works like this. If this thing had pedestals on all four corners, standing up on all four corners, so the dina pi tikra yored b'sosem means you can carry underneath here because all of the walls, mamish, drop to the ground as if they are just totally a wall made out of solid material. That's pi tikra yored b'sosem. So because of that, it seems that the initial shita, which said that 1/3 of the 1/3 of this space of this karpef was roofed, but we didn't say pi tikra yored b'sosem. It implies that the first shita doesn't hold a pi tikra yored b'sosem. So the Gemara therefore makes the most reasonable jump and says as follows: Lema, maybe we should say 4 lines from the bottom, Rava v'Rab Zera b'plugta de Rabbi Shmuel kimiflagei. Maybe Rava and Rav Zera really are just an extension of the machlokas of Rav and Shmuel. Remember that Rav and Shmuel were much earlier. They were first generation Amoraim. Rava and Rav Zera were 4th century Amoraim, so they lived about 100 plus years after. So maybe they just are kind of keeping party lines. You've got the Rava camp where there's no pi tikra yored b'sosem. Let's see who holds what. The Itmar. We had a machlokas Amoraim. Achsadra bebika. If you have this flat roof with 4 pedestals, just a place for shade, right? It's an achsadra, and it's in a bika where animals are. So then Rav Amar mutter letaltel bekula. Rav says it's mutter to carry under the achsadra and the bika. Ushmuel Amar ein metaltel and bo ela dalet amos. Ein metaltel and ela dalet amos. You're only allowed to carry dalet amos under that space. You get nothing out of the deal other than your regular dalet amos. Says the Gemara, Rav Amar mutter letaltel bekula. Why is Rav Mekil? Because Amrinan pi tikra yored b'sosem, because he holds of the din of pi tikra yored b'sosem. Mashein Kain, says the Gemara, last line, Kafei Amar Aleph Shmuel Amar ein metaltel and ela ba'arba amos. No. You only get your dalet amos. Why? Last few words on the page, lo amrinan pi tikra yored b'sosem, because maybe he doesn't hold this. That's the Gemara's recommendation, is that maybe Rava and Rav Zera are just following their own shitas, as their previously stated shitas, not their shitas, but that of Rav and Shmuel. So lema that the machlokas Rava and Rav Zera matches up to that of Rav and Shmuel. So who says what? So Rava says that the walls don't drop. So Rava seems to be like the opinion of Shmuel, and Rav Zera seems to be like the opinion of Rav. So says the Gemara on the top of Daf Chaf Amud Beis. Says the Gemara, no. Idi avida ki achsadra. If in fact it would have been the case that this was the achsadra that you're describing, this flat rooftop with 4 pedestals, everyone agrees, hachanami, then I would agree with you. Hachanami what? I would agree with you, l'kula or l'chumra. That's not clear from the Gemara. Take a look at Rashi. Rashi dibur hamaskel hachanami. Hachanami, afilu rabba modek Rab. It's actually Rabba here. That's one of the reasons why when we said Rava on the bottom, there are some girsa changes here. So it might not be Rava and Rav Zera that we learned on the bottom. It might be Rabba and Rav Zera. And this Rashi is a big raya to that effect. And the Hagos V'Tzionim makes those changes accordingly. If you have that in your notes there, you can see the same thing in Os Katan Gimel and in Os Katan Gimel. Nevertheless, Rashi says, according to the opinion of Rava, what did Rava say, or Rabba? Rabba said that there is no pi tikra yored b'sosem. So says Rashi, Hachanami afilu Rabba moda kerab de pi tikra yored b'sosem. If the achsadra is your classical achsadra, a gazebo with a flat top and 4 posts holding it up, leisman de pali, everyone's going to agree that is considered to be a pi tikra yored b'sosem. Hacha b'mayaskinan. What were we dealing with in our case? With Rabbi and Rav Zera, says the Gemara, Da'avda ki or zila. The roof was sloped like this, like a little bit of a rain shelter, so that the water doesn't collect on the top. There we have our machlokas between Rabbi and Rav Zera. But with a flat top, everyone agrees. No, that's pashut. Everyone agrees what we're talking that we paskin like Rav, that we say pitikra yord v'sosim. What we were dealing with was a slanted roof, and there's a machlokas. Says the Gemara, continuing, Amar Rav Zera umodina. Rav Zera was the one who said pitikra yord v'sosim. And he was the one who, in our case, let's just go back to make sure we have it clear here. We said in a karpef that has 3 units to them, it's 3 sa'a, 1 was covered. So then Reb Zera said that you lose your karpef because pitikr yord is so same, and now you don't have dalad, now you don't have a base sa'a anymore. So let's see how this connects. It says the Gemara, Amar Reb Zera, umodina bekarpef shenifratz b'miluo lechatzer she'aser. That if you have a karpef and the wall breaks down between a karpef and the chatzer. So what's the din? It says the Gemara that it's usher to carry. Rashi, Dibur Hamaskil, 3rd line, Shenifratz b'milu l'chatzer, she'avir chatzer miyasro ve'osehu yoser mibeis asai ve'aser. Perfectly in line with Rav Zera. Because Rav Zera was of the opinion that if you have another third, you have another sa'a to make it larger than a base sa'a. We said if there's a roof there, we hold a pitikra yord v'sosem. So here, what happens? We have a problem here, which is that there's no roof. So because there's no roof here, there's no particular yord b'sosem. So therefore, Reb Zera would agree even in that case to say that it's usher to carry in that case, because all you did was make it a larger space to carry. Says the Gemara, my taima, because the airspace of the chatzar that you are now broken into, where the karpef opens into, that airspace just basically added to the karpef. Says the Gemara, why? Maskifler of Yosef b'chi avir hamutar lo, avir hamotar lo osra. I don't understand. You were allowed to carry in the chatzer. The fact that the karpef breaks into a chatzer shouldn't ruin the chatzer. What we have you have a question about the karpef. I got you, but the chatzer should be mutar to carry. So that's a good question. Says the Gemara, Amar le Abaye Kiman, whose shita are you holding like to say that it should be mutar to carry? Kirib Shimon. But then it says the Gemara as follows: no, the Reb Shimon Nami ha'ika avir makom hamachitzos, where the wall broke down. Now we have extra space. Even according to Reb Shimon, where you might have thought that he would have said that it's otherwise mutter, not here, because when the wall breaks down, the depth of the wall itself, let's say it's 1 amma, fine, but now you don't have base saw anymore. You have a base saw plus another amma. So of course it's going to be usher to carry. Forget about the chatzer. Leave the chatzer out. Just the width of the wall should be problematic for Reb Shimon. So says the Gemara, the Amar Rav Chizda. What did Rav Chizda teach us? Rav Chizda taught us karpef shenifratz b'milu l'chatzer, chatzer muteres v'karpef aser. This is a perfect mari makom, which matches up just great. The chatzer is mutter to carry, not much changed. You're still allowed to carry there. The karpef is aser because even if prior to the breaking of that wall, it was 4,999 square amos, but when the wall broke, the depth of the wall is added in to the karpef, and therefore we exceed the limit. And because we've exceeded the limit, so therefore it should be mutter to carry in the chatzer, but then aser again to carry in the karpef. So says the Gemara, that was the din that he taught us. Chatzer, my time of muteris to isla gifufe, because there's still some bricks sticking out a little bit. So it's very clear to us that it's a chatzer. The chatzer doesn't totally blend into the karpef. Asks the Gemara, Zimna de mishkachas le'ebcha, lav dafka. Maybe there aren't gifufe. Maybe it's not so pashut that you have those reminders by the chatzer. Ella, no. What's the reason why? Mishum damrinan ze avir mechitzos miyasros, because the walls make the karpef bigger, and therefore it's problematic. But when it comes to the chatzer, then the width of the walls is not problematic. The width of the walls is not problematic. End of the story. Hahu bustina, there was an orchard. Davasamich leguda de apadna. So the picture books here have this great picture. There's an orchard. 3 of the 4 walls are normal. The 4th wall is basically a house of some kind, where the wall that is directly next to the orchard is considered to be the 4th wall of the orchard. Nafal ashisa briasa de apadna. The inner wall of this building fell down. which was our fourth wall. We had 3 regular walls. The fourth wall was a building, but the wall that was closest to the orchard broke down. Savar Rabbi Lememar. Rabbi said, Lismocha Guda Gavyasa. What's the big deal? So the inner wall fell down. Let's rely on the outer wall of the house, which was not the one that was closest to the orchard, but the other side of the building. We should rely on that wall. So it says the Gemara, and here we need to have a little bit of history. I didn't recall this. I learned this many years ago, but I didn't recall it. Apparently, Rabbi was not the tallest of people. Amar le Rav Papi, mishum de asimi muloi. Just because you came from short people, amrisu mili mulyasa. Does that mean you also have to say small things? I don't understand why you're saying something so ridiculous. Says the Gemara, Hanach mechitzos legavoi avidan, livroi lo avidan. The outer wall was made for other purposes. It's not made for this purpose. And we have to make sure that if you're going to have a wall that you're going to use, it needs to be for this purpose. And therefore, says the Gemara, we reject that idea outright. Next case, Hahu abvarnika dehavale l'reish galusa bebustane. In his bustane, in the orchard, there was like a little sitting area. That's what an abvarnika is. Like a little sitting area inside the carpet, and of course a carpet you can't carry it, but he wanted to carry. So Amar Leila Rav Huna bar Chinana, he said to Rav Huna bar Chinana, do me a favor, le'avid mar takanta. I'd like you to make a little solution for me. I want you to fix up my abavarkana, this place where I can sit on Shabbos. Awesome. I want to eat my morning breakfast there on Shabbos morning. Afram, the Reish Galusa. It's excellent. So he wanted to go eat breakfast there, but he needed to have a way to carry. He knew that there was an Isser D'Rabbanan to carry in a carpet. What should he do? Azal, Avad, Kana Pachos Mishlosha. So what he did is he took posts in the ground and he did them within every 3 tvachim, and he built a walkway for him to get to this space, and he surrounded the walkway with pegs. Whatever it was, 10 tvachim tall, whatever the shear is. Azal Rava's like, what are you doing? What are you talking about? Azal Rava shalfinhu, and he removed them. He totally did not agree with them. Rashi, Dibur Hamaschil shalfinhu de lo svir lehatakanta. This doesn't do anything. This doesn't do anything at all. Azal Rav Papa Rav Huna Bered Rav Yoshua. So then Rav Papa and Rav Huna Bered Rav Yoshua naktinhu mi basrei. They took them away so that no one would put them back to think that they work, because they don't work. So then the Gemara says, Lamachar, the next day, 3 Bam Kashas against Rava. 3 Bam Kashas, one after the next. Here is Bam Kasha number 1. Says the Gemara as follows. Lamachar, Asibe Ravina L'Rava. Ravina says to Rava, wait a minute. Wait 1 second. Ir Chadasha, if you were to have a new city, this is a din within the realm of Tchum Shabbos, which is going to be the next parak that we're going to learn about. Emir Tashem, tomorrow, as we turn to the bottom of Kavav and Beis, we will finish this parak of Avos and Pasan and move to Bechol Ma'arvim. We'll learn about this more in the next parak. But anyways, in regards to the world of Tchum Shabbos, Ir Chadasha, if you have a new city, so where do we start measuring the 2,000 amos from? So it says the Gemara, Ir Chadasha, Moded and Lami Yeshivasa. It's from the house itself. It's not from the outer walls. The Yeshana, if you have an older city, so then we measure those older cities. Those we measure from the walls and not from the homes. So says the Gemara, Ezohi Chadasha ve'ezohi Yeshana. What's considered a new city, such that you measure from the inside, and what's considered an old city, such that you measure from the outside. Says the Gemara as follows. Chadasha shehukva. The definition of a chadasha is that you first built a wall. Ulvasov yashva. You built the outer walls of the community, and then you built your home inside. So in that case, the walls are not relevant to the count. There we look at the house itself. Masha'en ken yeshana, 7 lines down, chavav mad aleph. Yeshana yashva. If you first built your house, and then ulvasov afterwards, only afterwards hukva. So then we measure from the wall. What's our case like of the king? Remember what we were discussing. He already was in a place that was hukaf ladira, and he wanted to have a place to eat. Did he need walls inside that bustana, inside the orchards? Yes or no? Says the Gemara, "V'hai nami kahukva ulvasof yashvadami." Our case of the king, who had his little eating area somewhere within his orchard, is like the case of what? Hukva ulvasof yashva. It's like the case of the chadasha, where we don't measure from the outside wall. Rava, we can't use the outside wall. We need something on the inside. Why did you take away the pegs? The case of the Reish Galusa is a case where we cannot rely on the outer wall of the carpave. We need to have something inside. Why did you take out the pegs? Question number one. Question number two, Amalei Rav Papa the Rava. Rav Papa says to Rava, remember Rava was the one who pulled out the pegs. If you have people who build walls, sometimes people builders will build walls just to protect them from not falling off the side when they're doing construction. They're not permanent walls. They're temporary walls. So says the Gemara, if you have mechitzos adarchelin, if they're the walls of builders, lo shma mechitza. So what do we learn from there, Alma? What we see is kevan delitzni usa avidala, that since the walls were made for tznius, lo havya mechitza, that doesn't count as a mechitza, and therefore hachanami here by our case of the reish galusa, the outer walls are simply kevan delitzni usa avida lo havya mechitza, and therefore Rava, again, your outer wall cannot help. So why then did you remove the pegs? Question number two against Rava. Question three, third of the way down. Yet another question. If you have a mechitza that is made for nachas, what does that mean? Rashi, just to our right, 2 lines up. Dibur hamaschil nachas shelo ladur sham elo lehishtamer mashe yanichu sham. It's a wall that's only made to contain that which is within. An orchard needs walls to keep people out. It's not because it's a makom dira. Those walls don't count for carrying. And this is question number 3. So the haraba baravuha me'arev la lekuli mechuzah. He made an eruv around all of mechuzah, but he did it in a unique way. He did it arsiyasa. He did it by neighborhood. You got Peterson Park, you got Lincolnwood, but he didn't do the whole city in one eruv. Why not? Mishum pira de beitore, because they used to have these ditches in the ground where they would dump grains and fruit to feed animals. It was like a communal trough for the animals to eat from. What do we see from here? The fact that he did not include in the mechitza of mechoza these ditches in the ground, the fact that he did not include them indicates that they should not be included, because they are what? They're suya l'nachas. So therefore, back to our case, we see that something that's a suya l'nachas doesn't count as an eruv. It wasn't even included in his eruv. The haraya, the third punch against Rava to say, why did you remove those pegs? The only way the reish galusa could have possibly eaten there is if you left the pegs there. Why did you take them out? It says the Gemara, Kari alayu reish galusa. The Reish Galusa says about these holy Jews who are arguing about this, whether or not he can eat there. I'll just read the pasuk from the side so I read it correctly. It says the pasuk, Chachamim hema lehara ulehetiv lo yadau. They didn't know, respectfully, this is not me talking, they didn't know what they were doing. It wasn't clear to them what was going on. Rava thought X. The first person, who was the first person? Rav Huna Bar Chinana thought that we needed the pegs. Rava said we didn't need the pegs. Everyone argues against Rava. So big machlokas in the Gemara as to whether or not it's not a machlokas anymore. It seems like Rava was rejected. We would have said that in an orchard where you have walls and it's technically a karpef, you're not allowed to carry there unless you build a mechitza inside the mechitza, because inside the karpef, because otherwise it doesn't work. Last sugya for the night. We're coming up on 45 minutes here, so let's wrap up. Amar Vilay, Mirabelazar Vafilu Base Core. We said in our Mishnah that this could even be a much larger space. Speaking about the karpef, let's see what he says here. Mas nisin delo kechananya. Our Mishnah must not be like the opinion of Chananya. The Tanya, the Brisa writes, Chananya Omer Vafilu hi arba'im sa. Wow, that's a very large space. Ke'asratia. Even a massive space like a king would have, acres of land, says the Gemara, that would be fine. Amar Rav Yochanan. So we have our Mishnah and we have the sheets of Chananya, and Rav Yochanan, the Amora, comes in after the fact and says, what were they arguing about? Says the Gemara, they both are arguing from the same pasuk. Yoshua wouldn't go out to the outer tichon, to the outer field. Ksiv ha'ir, the karin on chatzer. We have a creek sieve there. If one were to learn out of a cloth, they would see that it doesn't look like this. The ksiv is ha'ir, but when we lane it, we say chatzer. Says the Gemara, Mikan, the Istaratya Shal Melech, Shayuki Ayaros Benonios. The Istaratya Shal Melech, which is 40 sa, it's massive. So let's see, 2 sa is 5,000. multiply it times 20, it's 100,000 square amos. That's a massive, massive space. So says the Gemara, that is considered to be Ayaros Benonios. That's a medium-sized city. Says the Gemara, but Micah Miflage, what's the machlokas between our Tana and the Tana of Hananya? Says the Gemara, Mar Savar Ayaros Benonios, Havyon Beis Kur. Our Mishnah holds that it's a Beis Kur, and Umar Sabar Memsa Havyon. And here Hananya clearly holds that it's 40 sa. Asks the Gemara just a technical historical question. What was Yeshayahu even doing in this space? Like, why was he even there? Obviously, this is a lead-in question. Answers the Gemara. Amar Rabba bar Rav Huna, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Melamed Shechala Chizkiah. Unfortunately, Chizkiah was sick at that time. V'halach Yeshayahu v'hoshiv yeshiva al pischo. And Yeshayahu went and he built a yeshiva at that place in that open space, the very, very large space there. And says the Gemara, Mikan l'talmid chacham shechala shemoshiv in yeshiva al pischo, that when there is a talmid chacham who is sick, we should build a yeshiva right by the entrance to where he is. Says the Gemara, be careful with that. That may not always be good advice. It says the Gemara, V'lav milsi, you cannot extrapolate for that to apply to everyone. Why not? Because says the Gemara, Dilma asi le'igruye beisatan, because not everyone writes the Meforshim was like Chizkiah, who was a big tzaddik. Let's say you have a regular Rosh Yeshiva who might be a big Talmud Chacham, but he might be a tzaddik of sorts, but he's not a tzaddik Gamor. And we're afraid that if you are building this yeshiva in an effort to save the Talmud Chacham, we're afraid that the Malach HaMavis is going to pursue that Rosh Yeshiva more stark, because maybe, the Talmud Chacham who's sick, maybe he's going to pursue him more stark to say that, he's not like Chizkiah, maybe it'll be dangerous, so therefore we don't have this custom. So we're going to stop here now at the two dots at the bottom of Klavav Amud Aleph. Mirza Hashem on Shabbos, an hour before Mincha. I don't know exactly what time Mincha will be. Let's see, Shkia right now is at about, I don't have it on my phone anymore, whatever. It's about 7:20. I imagine it'll be about 7:15 is going to be Shkia, so 6:45 Mincha. So probably around 5:45 on Shabbos for Daf Yomi. Just follow the announcements that come out. And wishing you all a beautiful day and a beautiful start to Shabbos, and looking forward to learning together in person on Shabbos afternoon. Have a great night.